What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're taking a bit of a break from the Battlefield content. I just wanted to spread the news that Splitgate is back, and in my opinion at least, better than ever, based on my very limited experience returning to it so far. And in today's video, I wanted to go through the main things that they fixed and adjusted for this relaunch of Splitgate 2. Now just to recap for anybody that isn't familiar with the game, this is an arena-style shooter with portals mixed into the equation. It's always been described as Halo meets Portal. And I personally really enjoyed the gameplay style. I think it fills a really nice niche in the FPS space, and earlier this year, Splitgate 2 launched. And while I thought it had a lot going for it, at the same time, I just felt like it was missing a lot of features, and it was lacking in some key areas, and unfortunately, it was unable to retain players. So with that, they made the big decision to actually take the game offline and work out a lot of the issues, add a bunch of the features that many people expected to be there at launch, and then just recently, they've relaunched this. And instead of still calling it Splitgate 2, they're calling it Splitgate Arena Reloaded. Although it is the exact same client, it is a free-to-play game, by the way, just in case you guys weren't aware of that. And with this relaunch, they've adjusted a lot with the game, although the same core gameplay flow is still there, which I think is great, because that's where I think they actually went right, is with their core gameplay and gunplay. So let's start going through the main changes that they made for this relaunch and why I think the game got quite a bit better. So the first really big thing they did here is they removed factions and the hero abilities that were tied to those factions. That was a big change they made for Splitgate 2 compared to Splitgate 1. And it just didn't really land well. It pushed a lot of the dedicated Splitgate 1 fans away because it was so drastically different. And I don't think it did as much as they'd hoped to attract a new, more casual audience that's looking for some hero shooter elements. And as a result, I think it just had a big net negative impact on the game. So they've taken that feedback, removed factions entirely, and now they've got a much more simple create a class system. So with this, you choose your primary weapons and a couple attachments, same thing with your secondary weapon. Then you get a piece of equipment and 3 perks to choose from. And this, I think, was an excellent move and a necessary move to at least bring back some of the dedicated Splitgate players. It really returns the focus back to what I think makes this game special, and that's its gunplay and portal play. While it wasn't a game breaker for me early on, I really don't think it needed all those hero gimmicks layered on top of its excellent gunplay. Now, speaking of core gameplay and gunplay, they have also increased the time to kill a little bit. And this also feels excellent so far because it makes it so there's a bit more of a gunfight. It does feel more like an arena shooter should feel, where there's actually time to really think while in the middle of a gunfight and make interesting plays with portals, for instance, while doing that, and make sure that you're lining up headshots, for instance, to get a better time to kill. It never really feels like you just get insta-melted anymore, unless it's one of the power weapons that spawns on the map, of course. But that's fair in my eyes, since they've earned that by picking that item up, and you had the opportunity to do the exact same thing. They just beat you to it. But overall, I think this was a nice improvement as well. It is going to be increasing the mechanical skill gap a little bit, although that skill gap is already fairly high in this game. Next, another key change that they made here that I still find kind of ridiculous that we didn't have access to when the game launched is the ability to select individual modes in quick play that you want to play. When Splitgate 2 initially launched, you had no control over the specific game mode that you were playing with quick play. You just got whatever it would give you, and I hated that. I really didn't like that I couldn't decide which game mode I wanted to play. Now they've got a list of modes that you can select to play in your quick play filters, including classic arena and classic takedown. And with these, you don't have loadouts. You just spawn in with the same guns as everybody else. And then of course there are the weapon pickups around the map still, so you can get those. But with this, I actually quite like what they've done as well to encourage people to branch out and select more modes to ensure that more modes will be populated with potential people that they can use to infill. They provided a 1% XP boost per mode selected. So currently there are 12 game modes in this, and if you select all 12, you get a 12% XP boost while playing. However, then you just get whatever you get. And I actually really like what they did there. There's some incentive for people to branch out a bit more and open up those selections, but you're not forced to. Now after that, aesthetically, they've also made a lot of changes here. And the way I see it is they just got a bit more of a serious but arcadey tone to the game when looking through the menus, for instance, rather than what they described as a more playful tone that they had previously, where there were a lot of really bright colors. And I'll admit that previous style, while it didn't really bother me all that much, I did feel like it set a strange tone for the game that didn't really match the gameplay style. So now that I've seen this, I'm definitely preferring the overall looks to this. Not that it makes a huge difference overall, at least for me. Gameplay is obviously number one, but I just found that to be quite interesting. Another thing I really like is they added a proper practice range now. And while you could, of course, just create your own, and I did create my own practice range previously because they have a really nice map editor in the game, it's nice to have that pre-made practice range that just has everything there for you already, and it's made by people that really know what they're doing when it comes to creating a map, rather than trying to throw something together for myself when I'm not a map designer by any means. And speaking of maps, they also added 5 new arena maps into rotation, so there's a total of 20 now, so excellent map rotation. And they've also reworked the previous maps as well to provide more meaningful portal opportunities. That was another big complaint at launch with Splitgate 2 relative to Splitgate 1, is it felt like they at least largely took portaling out of the equation on many of the maps. And that's kind of like the whole point of the game, is portaling and shooting. And so they've added more opportunities to use those portals to your advantage, which absolutely increases that skill gap drastically, but it also leans into what this game is designed to be. Now, as far as other content that they brought to the game, they added a new power weapon, which is the railgun, and they also added light machine guns. So we've now got more weapons to choose from as well. Then after that, another big change they made here was to progression. Since they got rid of factions, which were our primary form of progression previously, was leveling up your factions, now they've got a career levels system. So you have your rookie levels, which span 75 levels, and throughout those levels, it introduces players to the core kit, and that's where you unlock your weapons and equipment and perks. And then beyond that, you can get up to level 1000, and as you progress through all of these levels, you'll be able to unlock prestige cosmetics. And I think that's great as well. That's something I wanted to see with the launch of Splitgate. I just felt like only leveling up factions just felt wrong, and I wanted to have like a player level, a career level, and that just didn't exist. Now it does. They've also reworked their Prolium, which is their in-game earnable currency. So you earn it by playing through challenges, the battle pass, career levels, events, and more, and you can use that to unlock various cosmetics. And another big thing is we now have a proper combat record where you can see your player stats and you can view your progress over time. That is something that I really felt was missing at launch as well, and it's kind of a core part of an FPS game is having access to that, and it just felt like that was missing, so we've got it now. And then finally, for the main things I wanted to cover here, there were a bunch of audio improvements, and I noticed those immediately in-game, especially hearing when enemies are coming through portals, for instance. I think that helps a lot. And it just makes the gameplay feel a lot more immersive, where you feel like you can actually understand your surroundings a lot better due to the audio. And that wraps it up for the primary things that I noticed. There are other little things in there as well. I will leave a link to the blog post that they posted here outlining all of the changes they made. And this is where I want to share my final thoughts on things. Overall, I'm very impressed with the level of change they've made here. This does feel like a true, proper relaunch of the game. They made a ton of improvements, and I would say the state of the game now is very clearly better than it was at launch with Splitgate 2. However, I do think it's likely it's going to be difficult for them to regain any sort of traction. And part of the reason for that is I simply think this style of a game appeals to a smaller, more niche audience. It doesn't have that widespread appeal. And I think that's the main mindset that caused them to fail initially with Splitgate 2, is they tried to appeal to the masses, but the style of gameplay just doesn't really appeal to the masses. So by trying to capture the masses, they ended up alienating their core player base that they really should be focusing on. And I think they just need to accept the fact that this style of game simply won't have very widespread appeal. And that's fine. There's absolutely a market for a game like this. It's just going to be a smaller market, and I think they're best suited to focusing on that specific niche market and making the best game possible for those people. And I think that's really the big lesson that they learned here, and it's clear from the relaunch that that is their priority now, is more so refocusing on their core player base. And then maybe there's opportunity for them to build from there to some degree, but again, I just don't think this game's ever going to have widespread mass appeal. I do think it was smart that they rebranded this as Splitgate Arena Reloaded, rather than just still calling it Splitgate 2, even though it still is technically Splitgate 2. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of the people that checked out Splitgate 2 when it first came, and then they just kind of burnt out with the game fairly quickly, it's going to be hard to get their attention and get them to re-download the game and come back, even though it is far better, in my opinion, at least now. And I also haven't really seen any marketing around this either. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, is just in case you guys did enjoy Splitgate 2 and you like this style of gameplay, I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that so that you could come back and check out the game. Now, as far as whether or not I will be playing the game, I think it's the type of thing where I might come back and dabble here or there. Maybe I'll do the odd stream from time to time, but at the end of the day, my primary focuses right now are going to be Battlefield and Black Ops 7. And that doesn't really leave me much time to be playing another game on top of that, especially for content. And I really don't plan on making any future content on Splitgate 2 unless there's some kind of like really big news to be talking about, for instance. Now, of course, I am curious to hear from you guys, though. How are you feeling about Splitgate now that it's back with a bunch of changes and improvements? For those of you guys that have played it, do you guys think the game is in a significantly better state than launch with Splitgate 2? Or maybe not so much? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.